Foogiano, released from prison, served 4 years. The last artist left on the 1017. Everybody's either dead or in jail, literally, or released. He was one of the 2 artists that Gucci decided to keep. Pooh Shiesty and Foogiano, of course. He's been released. The internet's going crazy.
Foogiano just touched down from 5 years in federal prison, and the very first thing this man did was send a chilling message directly to Gucci Mane. Y'all need to hear this. Not a subliminal, not a vague Instagram post. A message, cold, calculated, and timed to perfection. Because Foo didn't come home to a normal situation. He came home to a label that is on fire. His CEO allegedly just got robbed and held at gunpoint by his own artist, Pooh Shiesty. There are federal kidnapping charges on the table. There is a diss track in the streets called Crash Dummy. And now Gucci's last man standing just walked out of prison with 5 years of silence built up and something to say. The timing on this is not a coincidence, gang. Foogiano has been sitting in a cell watching his idol, the same man he grew up listening to, the same man who signed him and gave him his first real shot, become the most controversial figure in hip-hop right now. And the moment those prison doors opened, Foo stepped into a situation that is way deeper than rap. So let me break it all down for y'all from the beginning, because to understand what Foogiano's message means, you have to understand exactly what he came home to. And once you see the full picture, that message is going to hit different. Real quick, for anyone who doesn't know, Foogiano's government name is Kwame Khalil Brown, born July 4th, 1993 out of Greensboro, Georgia. And Greensboro ain't Atlanta, ain't Memphis, ain't no major city. This is small town Georgia, where the streets are tight and everybody knows everybody, and the only ways out are music, sports, or crime. Foo found all 3 at some point. By the time he was 12 years old, Foo's whole world shifted. His uncle came home from prison and dropped a bomb on him. The man he thought was his father was actually his stepfather. From that moment, Foo said he went straight to the hood. And once you go street at 12 in a small Georgia town, the system finds you fast. In 2013, he caught burglary and robbery charges. 2014, he got sentenced, served 3 years. That was bid number 1. But here's what you have to understand about Foo. He never let that stop his momentum. He came back out, started taking music serious, and the talent was undeniable. His single, Molly, Baby Mama, started making noise in 2020. Real organic buzz, not manufactured, not label pushed initially, just real street records connecting with real people. DaBaby hopped on the remix. That's when the industry started paying attention. And who was watching closer than anyone? Gucci Mane, the architect of Atlanta trap music, the man who discovered more street talent than almost any executive in the game. Gucci signed Foogiano to 1,017 records in 2020 and immediately gave him the platform. November 2020, Foo's debut album, Gutta Baby, dropped, and it debuted at #1 on Billboard's Heat Seekers albums chart. Out the gate, first album, #1. This was a career on a rocket ship, fam. And then December 2020 happened. December 2020. Foo gets arrested in Georgia on possession of a firearm by a convicted felon charge. Because he had a prior felony, remember those 2013 charges? Having a gun at all was a federal violation. The judge set bail at $50,000 and put 2 conditions on his release. 1, wear an ankle monitor. 2, stay inside the state of Georgia. Now, most people would hear those conditions and say, bet, let me keep my head down, handle my business legally, and wait for this to resolve.
Yeah, Neil, so we're talking about Foogiano, the Atlanta-based rapper whose real name is Kwame Brown, is represented by Gucci Mane. Take a look. This is a booking photo just in. U.S. Marshals now say they tracked down the 27-year-old in Memphis last week. They tell us they had been trying to find him for 3 months after he apparently melted off his court-ordered ankle monitor, and they tried to track him down there. At last check, Brown is now being held in a jail in Memphis. We've also learned he's part of an ongoing wrongful death lawsuit stemming from a fatal shooting that happened at a nightclub in South Carolina.
That is the logical move. That is the safe move. Foogiano said, no cap, I don't care. He burned the ankle monitor off. Like literally melted it off his body. Didn't just cut it, burned it. And then he ran. Left Georgia entirely. Went on the run for 3 months. And here's the part that will always hit different when you hear it. While Foo was on the run, he was still performing, still doing shows, under his real name. He used to ask the crowd every night, if the police come in here, are y'all going to let them get me? And the crowd would go crazy saying no. He was moving on pure confidence, pure street energy. Playing chess, he said, not checkers, but the feds don't play crowd games, gang. In March 2021, federal agents caught up with Foogiano in Memphis, Tennessee. 3 months on the run, and it ended in Memphis. May 2021, he was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. 5 years for the gun charge combined with the ankle monitor removal and the fugitive situation.
Ryan Brown here from J. Ryan Brown Law. We're going to talk about rapper Foogiano's 5-year prison sentence that he apparently was given in Greene County, Georgia yesterday, and talk about a little bit of circumstances surrounding that. Now, we don't have access to the official court documents right now, so we are kind of basing this off just grassroots level information that is being, passed around. But it does appear that there's a lot of talk about him getting 5 years for removing an ankle monitor or something like that. But it also seems that he had a possession of a firearm by a convicted felon charge. And from our perspective as criminal defense attorneys here in Georgia, I think that is what likely led to the 5-year prison sentence. So recently there was a case in Georgia that deals with possession of a firearm by a convicted felon.
His girlfriend at the time, Rennie Rucci, went to Instagram immediately. You know what it is with me, I got us, #FreeFoo. Meek Mill posted about it, calling for his freedom, saying they were trying to kill this man's career for trying to protect himself. Gucci Mane said publicly he was on top of it and was going to get Foo the best lawyers. And then the prison doors closed, 2021, and Foogiano went silent for 5 years. But the world kept moving, and what it moved into is the craziest chapter in 1017 history. Y'all need to understand just how much the 1017 roster changed while Foogiano was incarcerated, because when Foo went in, 1017 was one of the hottest labels in rap. Pooh Shiesty had dropped Back in Blood and was genuinely one of the biggest new artists in the country. Big Scar was that secret weapon Gucci kept teasing. Enchanting was cooking. The whole wave was rolling. Then the bottom fell out, one by one. Pooh Shiesty caught his own gun charge in October 2021 and ended up with a 5-year sentence.
Rapper Pooh Shiesty is facing prison time after pleading guilty to a gun charge in Miami federal court. The case against Lontrell Williams Jr. stems from 3 shootings during the past 2 years, 2 of them happening right here in South Florida.
Big Scar died in December 2022 at only 23 years old.
Rapper Big Scar has died. This is what was posted by rapper Gucci Mane on his Instagram page. It shows a picture of Big Scar along with the caption that reads, "This hurts. I'm going to miss you." We are hearing the rapper died today. He was signed to Gucci Mane's label.
Enchanting passed away in June 2024. The new 1017 went from being a dynasty in the making to a tragedy in motion. Label after label in hip-hop has had rough patches, but this was different. This felt like the universe was targeting this specific roster. By October 2024, Gucci Mane got on Instagram Live and made a business announcement. He said he looked at his profit and loss statements and made a hard decision. He was dropping almost every artist on 1017 except for 2, Pooh Shiesty, who was finishing up his sentence, and Foogiano, who still had time left. Everybody else got cut loose. Here's what Gucci said verbatim. "I'm going to have to release almost all of my artists except Pooh Shiesty and Foogiano. This is a decision I didn't want to make. I thought about it. I could keep all of them under contract, but I said, hey, fuck it. Let's just make the unselfish decision and let them take their talents elsewhere."
Hey, what's up, y'all? Listen, I wanted to make this announcement on 10/17 yesterday, but I just seen like my statement, my P&L with all my artists. It's almost like a whole bunch of shakeup and it's a whole shit show in the industry right now. But when I look at my P&L and me being a businessman, I think that I'm gonna have to release almost all my artists except for Pooh Shiesty and Foogiano. This is a decision I didn't want to make. I thought about it, you know what I'm saying? I could keep all of them under the contract. But I said, hey, fuck it. Let's just make the unselfish decision and, let them take their talents elsewhere. So,
sounds clean, right? Sounds like a boss move. Sounds like Gucci being a businessman. But here's where it gets crazy. The 2 artists he kept, The two he said were the only ones making him money, the only ones worth investing in, were both sitting in prison at the time he said this. And within 6 months of Pooh Shiesty getting out, everything exploded in a way that nobody could have predicted. January 10th, 2026, Luminous Studios, far north Dallas, Texas. Gucci Mane thought he was going to a business meeting. He had been going back and forth with Pooh Shiesty about contract issues. Shiesty had been complaining about wanting out of 1017. There were contract disputes that had been simmering for a while. And from what prosecutors allege, Pooh Shiesty's father, Lontrell Williams Sr., had actually gone to a Staples beforehand to print out a contract release form, the paperwork to officially get Shiesty out of his deal. They lured Gucci and his associates to that studio under the pretense of a business meeting to resolve the situation. What happened once they got inside was not a business meeting. According to the federal indictment, 9 people were involved.
The complaint alleges that on January 10th of this year, 3 music industry professionals traveled to Dallas for a scheduled business meeting. Lontrell Williams Jr. arranged this meeting purportedly to discuss the terms of his recording contract with one of the victims.
Once the victims were inside the studio, Pooh Shiesty allegedly produced an AK-style pistol and held someone at gunpoint, forcing them to sign the contract release form. Big 30, whose real name is Rodney Wright Jr., allegedly used his body to physically barricade the studio door so nobody could escape. One victim was choked to the point of near unconsciousness. Others had Rolex watches, jewelry, and cash taken from them at gunpoint. The DOJ called it an armed takeover.
As alleged, once these 3 men were inside the recording studio, Williams Jr. and 8 co-conspirators, several of whom traveled from Memphis, Tennessee, executed a coordinated armed takeover. As alleged, Williams Jr. produced an AK-style pistol and forced one of the victims to sign a release from the recording contract at gunpoint. The remaining conspirators displayed firearms and robbed the other victims of Rolex watches, jewelry, cash, and other high-value items. One of the victims was actually choked by one of the defendants to the point of near unconsciousness. Defendant Wright barricaded the studio door with his body to prevent the victims from escaping.
Surveillance footage, license plate data, fingerprint evidence, and cell phone records all allegedly linked the suspects to the scene. And here's the detail that sealed it. Pooh Shiesty was supposed to be on house arrest at the time. His electronic monitoring device showed he was not at home. He left his location, traveled from Memphis to Dallas, allegedly committed this robbery and kidnapping, and went back.
The charging document outlines some of the evidence, just some, establishing the defendant's roles in the federal offense. This is as follows. Electronic monitoring data placing Williams Jr. at the offense location, which would put him in violation of his home detention conditions. Cell phone records and license plate reader data corroborating the coordinated travel of multiple defendants from Memphis, Tennessee to Dallas. Rental car records confirming Williams Sr. rented a vehicle that was used by the group. Surveillance footage from the offense location, a nearby office supply store, and a hotel where several of the defendants stayed following the offense. Fingerprint evidence as well that was recovered from the crime scene, matching at least 2 of the defendants.
The federal government moved fast. Pooh Shiesty, Big 30, Shiesty's father, and 6 more people were all charged with federal kidnapping, a charge that carries a maximum sentence of life in federal prison.
This week, 9 individuals, including well-known musical artists, kidnapped and robbed at gunpoint numerous victims at a music studio in Dallas, Texas. 8 of the 9 were arrested yesterday in Dallas, Memphis, and Nashville. These individuals who are charged and arrested include Lontrell Williams Jr., also known as Pooh Shiesty, Lontrell Williams Sr., Rodney Wright Jr., also known as Big 30, Kadarius Waters, Demarion Gibson, DeMarcus Glover, Corday Johnson, Darian McDaniel, and Terrence Rogers has not been arrested yet, but will be soon.
That's not even the crazy part, fam. That's not even the crazy part. In early April 2026, during Pooh Shiesty's bond hearing in a Dallas federal court, FBI Special Agent Pamela Hansen testified under oath, and what she said blew the whole situation open. She testified that Gucci Mane gave a statement to the Dallas Police Department on the evening of January 10, 2026, the same night it happened. And she confirmed that most of the criminal complaint relied on information from Gucci and his associates. Gucci talked. He cooperated with the investigation. Pooh Shiesty was sitting in that courtroom when this came out. Journalist Bryson Paul, who was in the room, reported that Shiesty rested his head against the courtroom wall, shook his left leg, and appeared to shake his head in disbelief as the agent's testimony continued. The judge denied bond. Shiesty stayed locked up. Then on April 10, 2026, Gucci Mane dropped a song, Crash Dummy, produced by Zaytoven. The song was clearly aimed at Pooh Shiesty and Big 30, even though Gucci didn't name them directly. The lyrics laid it all out in black and white. He rapped about being set up at what he thought was a business meeting. He talked about being dapped up and smiled at by people who were plotting against him. He told Shiesty that he went out like a real crash dummy and reminded him that after everything, he was still technically signed to the label. He declared that he built 1017 from the ground and wasn't going to let anyone take it down. And then, this is the line that sent chills through the internet. He closed the track by repeating one phrase over and over. I done been betrayed, now my heart turned cold. The streets were divided immediately. Some people respected Gucci for standing his ground and putting his feelings into a record. Others, especially people like Uncle Murda, came out swinging. Uncle Murda got on his podcast and said what a lot of people were thinking in the streets. He said Gucci can't sound like a civilian after being a gangster for over 20 years. He talked about how many people Gucci influenced, had out here banging and doing street things, and now Gucci wants to cooperate with police and drop a diss track? He said Gucci misled a generation of people and gave them energy he couldn't live up to himself. Charlemagne the God weighed in too, saying the allegations are still unproven and noting a troubling pattern he sees in how these industry situations play out. He said at some point you have to say forget the street code when your life is on the line. But he also acknowledged how complicated the whole situation is. The internet was going crazy. Instagram comment sections were on fire. And then, April 21st, 2026, something happened that shifted the entire energy again. Foogiano came home. April 21st, 2026. 1017 producer Spiffo Made It posted a selfie on his Instagram story with Foogiano and wrote simply, "No more free Foo." Foo's personal photographer confirmed it on his own story, "Stay free, welcome home, Foo." The photo that circulated, shared by No Jumper and picked up everywhere, showed Foogiano smiling, flashing those grills. Grills, by the way, that he famously kept even while incarcerated. In a BBC documentary filmed while he was in jail, he revealed he had a permanent $100,000 grill that never left his mouth. Even in county jail back home in Greensboro, he said those are his people. Those are the guards he grew up with. That smile with those grills is a statement in itself. Foo didn't come home broken. He came home the same. But the internet didn't just celebrate. The internet immediately started doing math, because look at what Foogiano walked into. His label's CEO just allegedly got robbed and kidnapped by his own label mate. The other artist on the roster, the man who came home 6 months before Foo, is now sitting in federal custody facing potential life in prison. Gucci dropped a diss track calling people crash dummies. The internet is debating whether Gucci is a snitch. 1017 Records is in genuine crisis. And Foogiano, he is now the last 1017 artist standing, the only one on the roster who is free, alive, and not under indictment. Some people in the comments saw it immediately. One fan wrote, "Rob 2 on the way." Another said, "Let's see how this goes." Someone else wrote, "Out of everybody who got fucked up in 1017, he might be the one who gets blessed." And then there was this comment that stuck with people. "Free Foo from 1017 before he send his cartel friends to come get you." That last one, that's where the energy gets interesting. Here's the real tea, gang. Foogiano's message to Gucci Mane was not a diss record. It wasn't a tweet. It wasn't an Instagram post. The message was the timing itself. The message was the silence. 5 years of sitting in federal prison, watching everything happen, not saying a single word publicly, and then coming home on April 21st, 2026, exactly 12 days after Gucci dropped Crash Dummy. Exactly 11 days after the FBI testified that Gucci talked to the police, in the middle of the most chaotic moment in 1017 history. The message is, I'm here. I watched everything, and I'm still standing. Let me break this down deeper because people are sleeping on how loaded this situation actually is. Think about this from Foogiano's perspective, fam. He is a man who burned an ankle monitor off his body rather than comply. A man who performed shows while on the run and asked crowds to protect him from police. A man who, when interviewed in jail by journalist Louis Theroux for a BBC documentary, looked into the camera and said, "I don't listen to nothing none of y'all say. I do what I want to do. Why y'all lie to me? You don't get to pick my life for me. Now I'm going to pick my own life." That is not a man who responds to pressure by softening. That is not a man who comes home and quietly asks Gucci for a meeting. That energy that took 5 years to build up in a federal prison cell, that energy has a direction now, and the direction is directly at the situation Gucci Mane has created. Here's what's critical to understand about the street politics of this moment. Foogiano grew up idolizing Gucci Mane. He said in interviews that Gucci was one of his favorite rappers alongside T.Y. and Lil Wayne. Gucci was the reason he wanted to do this, and Gucci gave him the opportunity that changed his life. That relationship has real depth and real loyalty in it. But Foo also just served 5 years while watching Gucci's entire operation fall apart. Big Scar is dead. Enchanting is dead. Pooh Shiesty went in, came out, and allegedly robbed the boss at gunpoint. Gucci cooperated with the feds. Gucci dropped a diss track calling his artist a crash dummy. Every person Gucci brought into his orbit has either died, gone to prison, or been cut loose. And now Gucci has one man left, Foo. And Foo just came home to a label that is, by any objective measure, a disaster. The chilling part of Foogiano's message is not aggression. Real ones understand this. The chilling part is the question his return puts on the table that nobody has publicly asked yet. What does Foogiano do now? Does he ride with Gucci through all of this chaos? Does he stay on 1017 and be the face of a label that the streets currently view with serious suspicion? Does he take the route Pooh Shiesty allegedly took, except smarter, except without federal kidnapping charges? Or does he carve out a lane entirely separate from Gucci and use his 5 years of prison credibility to rebuild from scratch? That photo, that smile, those grills, that energy, is not the face of a man who is about to quietly fall in line. That is the face of a man who has been thinking for 1,825 days and has a plan. And the streets know it. That's why the comments went the way they did. The fans who have been watching 1017 crumble aren't looking at Foogiano's return as just a rapper coming home. They're looking at it as the last wild card being played in a game that already lost 3 players. Let me zoom out for a second because this situation is bigger than just Foo and Gucci. This situation is a mirror being held up to an entire structural problem in how rap operates. When Gucci Mane rebuilt 1017 in 2020 with the new 1017, he did what he has always done. He found raw talent from the streets, gave them a platform, and put his name and resources behind them. And for a moment, it worked. Pooh Shiesty's numbers were astronomical. Foogiano had real momentum. Big Scar was building. The label was a genuine force. But what also happened is that Gucci's branding is built entirely on street credibility. The 1017 aesthetic, the trap music mythology, the whole identity of his label is rooted in a particular kind of street energy. When you build a label on that foundation and recruit artists from that world, you cannot then be surprised when the streets follow them inside your doors. Uncle Murda said it most directly, and no cap, he had a point. Gucci Mane spent 2 decades telling young men in Atlanta and Memphis, and beyond that, the trap life is the life. That banging, that street credibility, that trap god mythology, and that influences real people in real ways. And now, when the consequences of that mythology arrived at his actual studio door in Dallas, Gucci gave a statement to the Dallas Police Department on the same night it happened. That is not a criticism. Gucci Mane has a wife, kids, and a business empire worth protecting, and any person has the right to involve law enforcement when they are victimized. That is a legitimate position. Charlemagne made that argument clearly, but the streets don't separate the myth from the man so easily. And when the myth has been trap god for 20 years, the cognitive dissonance hits hard. Here's where Foogiano becomes the most fascinating figure in all of this, fam. He is the only person in this entire situation who has not yet made a move that defines him in one direction or another. Pooh Shiesty made his move, allegedly a violent federal crime. Gucci made his move, a police statement and a diss track. Big 30 made his move, allegedly was in that room. Uncle Murda made his move, called Gucci out publicly. The entire 1017 world has been forced to show its hand. Foo just got home. His cards are still face down. And that is the most powerful position anyone in this situation currently occupies. Think about who Foogiano is right now in terms of his position in the culture. He's a man with real street credibility. He did 5 years federal, no cooperation, no snitching allegations, nothing but time served. He's a man with music talent that people were genuinely excited about before he went in. He's a man who is technically still signed to 1017, the label that is currently the most chaotic and controversial label in hip-hop. And he's a man who, based on everything we know about his personality, does not make small moves. The chilling message is not just "I'm back." The chilling message is "I've been watching. I know everything that happened, and I got options. So what happens now?" Let me give y'all the real breakdown of how this plays out, because there are a few different roads this situation can go down. Road 1, Foogiano rides with Gucci, stays on 1017 and becomes the last soldier of a label trying to rebuild. This is the loyalty route. Given their history, Gucci took a real chance on Foo when nobody else was looking. There's a real relationship there that deserves respect. If Foo comes back and makes records, drops heat, and helps Gucci rebuild 1017's reputation, that's a real power move for both of them. A fresh start, new era, and Foo gets to be the face of it with the credibility of having survived 5 years without breaking. Road 2. Foogiano separates from 1017 and goes independent. After watching Gucci cooperate with law enforcement, after watching the label crumble, after watching every single person on that roster face tragedy, Foo could look at the situation and decide the 1017 brand is too heavy a cross to carry right now. Go independent, drop music under his own name, let the talent speak and rebuild without the baggage. Road 3, and this is the one the streets are most curious about. Foogiano says something, publicly, about Gucci, about the situation, about the culture, about everything he watched from inside that cell for 5 years. Maybe it's in an interview, maybe it's in a record, maybe it's in a documentary, because Foo has been known to talk, and the amount of perspective he has built up over 5 years of watching 1017 implode is genuinely historic in its depth. If he speaks on all of it with full honesty, the way only someone who has literally been through the fire and come back can, that is a story the culture will listen to. Here's the thing, no cap. The chilling part of Foogiano's message to Gucci Mane is that the message hasn't been fully delivered yet. What we're watching right now is the beginning of it. The photo, the timing, the smile, that's just the opening line. The full message is still being written. And the question nobody can answer yet, not Gucci, not the streets, not the internet, is exactly what that message is going to say. What we do know is this. Foogiano is a man who burned a court-ordered ankle monitor off his own body rather than be controlled. He is not a man who comes home and accepts whatever situation he walks into. He is not a man who goes quietly. 5 years is a long time to think. 5 years in federal prison, watching your label disintegrate, watching your boss become the center of one of the wildest controversies in hip-hop history, watching the man who inspired your entire career become someone the streets debate. 5 years of that builds something inside a person: pressure, clarity, purpose. And on April 21st, 2026, that pressure finally had somewhere to go. Foogiano is home, the last man standing on 1017. And Gucci Mane, the man who gave him his shot, the man his entire career is tied to, the man at the center of a federal kidnapping case, just received the chilling message that his last artist is watching. Real recognize real gang. And right now, the whole culture is watching to see who in this situation is actually real. Drop what y'all think in the comments. Is Foogiano going to ride with Gucci through this? Is he going to break away? And where do y'all think 1017 goes from here? Because one thing is certain, the next move Foogiano makes is going to say everything. If this video hit different, y'all know what to do. Subscribe, drop that like, and come back, because this situation is not over, not even close.